Hey, Cheryl.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I am so sorry for everything that you've gone through.
He really loved people. He was the most outgoing kid. Just loved everyone.
Cheryl McKenzie will always remember her son Logan Deerdorf by his high morals and strong character.
He was a leader. He was a strong leader. And I don't even think he knew it.
But he showed it at the grocery store in which he worked.
A gentleman one evening came in with a young child. His card declined. And Logan said, "Sir, I got you. I got you."
The 18-year-old teen had two big passions, cars, especially his blue Mustang, and his beloved girlfriend, Shelby Johnson.
This little girl, Shelby, changed my son in a short amount of time.
Both of their lives were cut short Saturday evening when a white car rear-ended Logan's Mustang. It happened on 45th Street in Shawnee. The teens were students at Tecumseh High School. Their school now showing their support for the victim's family and friends.
Well, I think anytime you have a situation like this where you lose members of your school family, it's very difficult for anyone, and especially young people, for students, to understand how this could happen.
Counselors are at the school this week to help anyone affected, including staff that knew the teens.
Many of our faculty certainly had the students in class, and certainly great bonds are built in those classrooms, so we're certainly want to be conscious of our faculty as well.
But no bond greater than that of a parent and their child. Cheryl says she's overwhelmed with the outpouring of support she's received from those who knew Logan.
And that's what's so great, is to actually be able to hear how they really feel and to see the effect that he had on them and that Shelby had on them. It just says so much about who they are and their character.
Cheryl remembering her son for his outgoing spirit and love for those he cared about the most.
I just want everyone to know that, you know, we had a huge loss. Not just the family, but a lot of people.
Lacey Lett, Oklahoma's News 4.
I hope you're doing as well as you can. I know it's got to be really difficult, so my heart goes out to you.
It has definitely been a long, depressing last year.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's a year of trying to figure out what's next, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sorry. How many kids do you have?
I have 3. Logan was my youngest, and my only son.
Okay.
I have 2 older daughters. One's 26 and one's 24.
Okay.
And then I have 2 grandkids. Thank God for the grandkids, because I think that's what's kept me sane.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah.
The only bad thing is they live 6 hours away from me.
Oh, that's tough.
So I'm in that limbo of, do I go home? Do I stay where I'm at? You know, just for the sanity part. But I do try to go home like once a month and see them for a week or so. So, you know, I try to balance that as much as possible.
That's good. Yeah, it's got to be. You know, I think when you're going through this, I mean, my experience is much different, but I think you know, you really do need a couple years. You really do. It takes a few years, and even then, it's never gonna be easy. But I think making big decisions when you're kind of in the still early phases of this stuff, it's usually best to wait, but that's...
I had a lady tell me, it was a friend of mine who had lost a son 27 years ago. I hope you can hear me with that air conditioner kicking on.
I hear you.
She told me within a month of losing Logan, she said, I know this is going to sound really odd. She said, but please take my advice. She said, I've been where you're at. She said, the very first year, she said, do not make any life-altering changes.
Yeah.
She said, I'll tell you, she said, you're going to go through highs and lows where you're thinking you're okay. and you're not. She said, that first year you are just in a fog, whether you realize it or not, you're in a fog. And she said, you don't typically make the best choices.
Yeah. Yep.
She said,
spot on.
if you have any major things that you have to make a decision on that has to be done, she said, I suggest you get somebody that you trust wholeheartedly with your life, basically, to help you make those decisions.
Yeah. No, I think that's
I'm not married, I'm
that's great
single,
advice.
and so I really, it's been a year and 7 months now. So it, so 18 months.
Yeah.
I'm kind of at that point where I feel like I can somewhat make those decisions more clear.
Yeah.
But I still ask questions. I have a best friend. I'm always asking my best friend for advice because I still second guess myself sometimes.
I think that's a healthy thing to do. I think that's really smart.
And everything, of course, I just poured myself into grief books at first, and some were helpful and some wanted me to some made me want to jump off the cliff.
Yeah, that's the problem. They have such a mixed thing, and if I know I've read a few of those, and I can't believe they'd even publish them with the intent of trying to help people.
I was so shocked at some of the things that I've read and some of the advice that these people were given. And, I think some of them were actually written by therapists. And I've yet to go see one. And I made that choice. At first I thought, I really need to go see a counselor. I need to go see a counselor. But the more research I did on my own, the better I felt. I felt like if I went to a counselor, more than likely they've not been through what I've been through. So they're just going to preach to me from a book.
Exactly. They're gonna tell you what they were taught in school and probably shove medication down your throat, and who knows what they're gonna do, but they're not gonna help you.
Completely against medication. I have been for years. See, I lost 2 brothers years ago. One of them was actually murdered.
Oh,
and
my God.
The source of murder was they forced Xanax down his throat while he was asleep. He was passed out drunk, and they found pills that were that weren't dissolved in his mouth. So that's how they knew that there was something fishy. Well, that was the first clue. And the second clue was that the guy that had done it had stole his truck. So his truck wasn't there.
I'm so sorry.
That was in 2007. And then in 1997, I lost my other closest brother to diabetes. And he was on a lot of medication, and he took Xanax as well. And I think he overdid it a lot. So I'm just not a fan of medication. I think that it's the devil.
Yeah, it's pretty much just, it might, I think in some cases, it might be okay if you go on for a month or two, but long term, no way. No way. And even then, you got to be really careful.
It's crazy because on my own, I kind of came to the conclusion that this is a process that I have to actually go through and feel. I can't cover it by alcohol. I can't cover it by pills because the longer I try to cover it, the longer it's going to take me to heal.
Exactly. Yeah, you're smart.
I really hit it pretty head on by myself. But by doing that, I went into solitude. I literally tuned everyone out.
Yeah.
Good. I went and just basically secluded myself in my house. I didn't talk to people. I just went through my whole thinking by myself because I did not want others to influence how I was thinking and feeling.
Good. No, that's exactly what you need. Everyone needs to take that approach because you'll just you'll get all sorts of advice, and it's most of the time not the best advice, and it's going to make you start overthinking and trying things you shouldn't do, and
I really found that everybody really does go through different grief.
Absolutely.
Not one grief is going to be the same, and I think it has a lot to do with the kind of relationship, the type of death that you're grieving. course, I was immediately, within 72 hours of my son passing, I can say I stopped and I thanked God for a minute that he didn't leave my son paralyzed.
Yeah.
And in a state that my son would have hated.
Yeah.
My son's death was very instant. It broke his neck, severed his spine. So he was gone immediately.
It's a blessing in a way, because
for me, for some reason, I had to know the details, and it took a while to get the police report and to get what they had as far as details.
Yeah.
But let me just tell you, I had the weirdest things. See, there was a lot of things going on before my son's death.
I was going to ask you that.
Into this.
Okay.
2 months before my son died, I had a vivid dream of his accident.
2 months before?
It was in, it was November. It was the 1st of November. Like the first week, I think it was around the 7th or 8th of November.
Okay.
I woke up at 6:30 in the morning, crying so hard, like I was just beside myself. Okay. Called my very best friend in a hysteric panic, crying, saying, "I've had the worst dream ever." Dream ever, and I think it's not a dream. And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Heather, this is going to sound really crazy, but I think my son is going to be killed in a car accident." And she said, "Cheryl, what is going on with you?" She was like, "That is just ridiculous." And I told her the dream. I told her everything I saw in the dream. She said, "Well, let's just hope it was a dream and not a premonition." And went on with it.
Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead.
As we got closer, it seemed like every day that gut feeling, that intuition, just got harder and made me sick. And of course, I never said anything to my son because I didn't want him to be freaked out, that.
Yeah.
It was one of those, I didn't know. I thought, I was kind of torn. Do I tell my son and try to prevent it? Or do I not say anything and it not happen? One of those things, because, they say psychologically you kind of create. So I was really trying to hold it down and not think about it.
Of course.
Christmas, he came, we had a great Christmas. The whole family was together. My middle daughter had just moved to Maine, and she had came back for Christmas. So we were all together. Okay. On the 26th, he left and went home, and I left and went home. We went our separate ways because I live in Texas and he was living in Oklahoma. And that day, for some reason, I thought that was the day it was going to happen. After he left, I remember hugging him really hard and telling him to be careful. But after he left, it was probably about 30 minutes into his trip. He called and said, "Mom," he was like, "Did I leave my watch there?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll mail it to you." And he said, "Okay, well," I said, "Son, please be careful." I said, "I just have a bad feeling today." I said, "Watch the idiots out on the road." And he said, "Okay, I am." He said, "Traffic's good right now." We just talked. He goes, "I'll call you whenever I get home." I'm like, "All right, great." And he did. He made it. Now, this was the 26th of December. I don't know why I thought that day was going to be it. I just had that gut feeling. Well, the day before the actual accident, it was a Friday night, the 25th of January. He had called me every night. He called me after work. That was just our thing. We talked every evening. Usually it wasn't a long talk. Usually it was, 20, 30 minutes. I'd check in, and go on. That night, it was a Friday night, like I said, 10 o'clock at night, he calls me, and we talked until almost 1:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Which was so odd for us to stay on the phone that long talking about things. And it was like life things that we were planning our future. We had a lot of plans together. And it was just a great conversation. That following Monday, I was supposed to go meet his girlfriend and a friend of his that he had wanted me to meet.
I'm sorry, you said when were you supposed to meet the friend?
This was on a Friday. Okay. I was supposed to meet him that following Monday.
The following Monday, okay.
For dinner to meet his girlfriend and his friend. He had a mechanic friend that he wanted me to meet. And I was like, great, see you at dinner, and he said, well, we had some other things that we had talked about that night, and he said, find out and let me know. And I said, I will, son. Next morning, I got up, found out some information, gave him a short text telling him that one of my friends that was going to help him with the business idea had agreed and wanted him to call him so that they could do lunch either on Sunday or Monday. And he said, sure, no big deal. He said, I'll call him after work because he was at work that day. And that was the last time I spoke to my son. Had no feeling. For some reason, that feeling of something was going to happen wasn't there. Yeah. So that evening, I was in town where I have two homes. Where my youngest daughter lives is my other house in Oklahoma.
Okay.
I go back and forth from. Anyway, I had gotten there that evening, and the neighbor next door met me at my car and said, hey, Cheryl, did you hear about my son? Because I hadn't been home in a month. And I said, no, I didn't. What happened? He had a 22-year-old son that had just been killed in a car accident. And he was telling me the story. Now, this was at about 5 o'clock, that he was telling me the story in the evening and going into detail about it. And after I got done talking to him, I walked into the house and I told my daughter, I said, did you know that Chris's son was killed in a car accident? She said, I heard that. She said, I didn't realize it was his son. And I said, I can't imagine losing a child. I was just very emotional from hearing that news. And then my phone rings.
Jesus. Excuse me, language.
And yeah, here's the thing. At this moment, where that phone rang, it was like deja vu. That dream was happening, and I seen it.
Before you picked it up, like as it was ringing?
Yeah. I said, because that's where my dream started.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Okay, so everything was playing out, and his dad was calling me. His dad never called me. I knew. I was crying before I answered the phone because I knew.
Oh, my God.
And I was already broke because I knew that it had happened. And when he said the words he said, it was everything that I had dreamt. Every detail I had in that dream was every detail of his accident.
Wow.
I saw every bit of it. Everything. In that dream.
Wow.
Things I didn't know. So, of course, I thought that was very odd that I had known that. But rewind to 2015.
Okay.
Motorcycle accident I was involved with. I was in a little bike group. Me and my ex-husband rode motorcycles with a group. We were all going to a little rattlesnake hunt that they had in Oklahoma. Okay. There were 13 of us, 13 bikes. 10 seconds before the accident happened, I get a vision of the whole accident.
Okay. That's very common. Yeah.
I see it all. Uh-huh. It was like a screenplay, a flash, but I remembered every image, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing it all, and I pat my husband's back to slow down because he couldn't hear me.
Yeah. Was it in like slow motion?
Yeah. Okay. We were going into a curve to where we couldn't get out of the turn, leaning. And I said, slow down, slow down, slow down. Finally, he slowed down just enough that the first 4 bikes, we were the 5th bike, the first 4 bikes got hit, and I see it blow up all in front of us. If he had not have slowed down when he did, that gentleman that hit the first 4 bikes would have hit us directly head on.
Wow.
Of course, we lost a person in that, and 4 of our friends lost their left legs. Now, here's what's odd about this. I knew as soon as I got off the bike who to go look for, and that they were very, very hurt, and what to do to take care of them.
So you say, oh, that's, wow.
I had, by the time paramedics and they had
Airlifted them.
yes, everything there. I had everybody assessed and who needed to go first and what their injuries were.
Wow.
I had done all this by myself. Everybody else went down. My husband and I were the only 2 that were not hurt, injured, or anything in the whole accident. One of the guys, the guy that was hurt the worst, I tourniquet his leg with my husband's belt, and that's what saved his life.
And did you happen to see that vision?
I
prior?
did not see doing that. I saw him laying on the ground with no leg.
Okay, so you just knew. It was like instinct. You, like you said, you kind of knew what order.
I knew where they were because
Yeah.
they were thrown everywhere. I could tell you where everybody landed before it happened. Crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. Have you ever had like, do you ever remember weird things as a kid, like
Yeah.
being able to predict things or feel things, or
Well, when I was a kid, I think I was about 4 or 5 years old. The very first thing that ever happened was I had a white light appear in my room, just like a spotlight. Scared me to death. I didn't know what it was.
do you happen to remember if anyone, I mean, it's kind of weird because you're so young, but do you remember anyone possibly passing away at that time? Maybe a neighbor, someone in the family, anyone really sick, terminally sick, anything like that?
At that time, maybe about a year prior,
Okay.
my grandmother had died a year or so before that. But the weird thing of it was, I ended up seeing images, but it was no one I knew.
Okay. You know what they looked like? I mean,
it looked like angels.
Okay.
Just looked like straight up angels, like what you think, with the wings and everything, which was kind of weird. But they were really bright, and there were like 4 of them, and they
4 of them.
They formed from this great big ball, and then when they left individually. It shrank back down into little balls and flew down the hall.
Huh. So 4 of them condensed, and then they went off their separate ways as separate lights.
Yes.
Okay.
And I immediately was so scared. I went and told my dad and told him everything, and he said, "Oh, it's okay. That was just your angels visiting." Because we were very into God. I mean, my parents were very, very religious.
Okay.
We went to church every time the doors were open. My mother was very religious. And she got to the point that she just couldn't take it anymore. It bothered her so bad she went and talked to the preacher about it. Because she wanted his opinion. And so he brought me in and talked to me, and he asked some questions. And I remember him saying that I was a seer.
So the preacher said this.
This is what the preacher said. And I thought, okay, I had no clue what that was. I was like 5. What's a seer? Yeah. And I kind of put that to the side. Like, I forgot about it. I had a lot of tragic after that. My mother died when I was 8. Saw her whole accident pass in front of me right before it happened as well.
Wow.
But then I didn't have it for years, which was really crazy. I just it was almost like I ignored it.
Okay, so you saw your mother passing in advance as well. You kind of had visions of it. And you were 7?
8.
8, okay.
Yeah, I was 8. And I just had I seen what was happening, what was going to happen just minutes before it happened.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty common. Yeah.
I just had that feeling. I knew something. I was a little shit. I'm not gonna lie. My mom was mad as hell at me that day. I'll never forget that day. She was mad because I wasn't wanting to clean my room. We had a 2-story house. My bedroom was upstairs. My mother was tired. She was hot. She was mad at me from screaming, telling me to clean my room. And I was just not wanting to listen. And so I remember following right behind her upstairs. She wanted to see how much I'd gotten done. And she was griping the whole way. And I seen the whole thing play out. And as soon as we got to the top of the stairs, she said, I need to sit down. And she sat down and had a stroke right there.
Oh, man. Oof.
Yeah, and it was just weird because going up those stairs was when I saw that.
Yeah, so as you're going up, you're kind of visualizing her. Okay, yeah. Oof. Yeah, you've it's common for people to, almost all of this is pretty common. It's just when you, with your son, normally I've kind of noticed that it's almost always the mother that kind of is able to pick this up in advance, and it's sometimes like with that, what happened to you, it could be months, sometimes it could be years, it could be, it varies, sometimes weeks, but it's a lot different when it's a mother-son, mother-daughter, and the mother is predicting it. There's something about that that's different than all the other people who experience this thing.
I've had so many questions because now it seems like some of the things that's happened are so odd to me.
They're so what? I'm sorry?
So odd.
Okay.
The orb thing is a little odd, but when I've researched it and started taking pictures and videos of my own and seeing them, I see his face sometimes.
Yeah. The book I had mentioned, this one here, Orbs, I don't know, Orbs in the Afterlife. This thing's off, but basically Virginia Hummel, who wrote it, she saw her son in the orb. So might want to be a book to maybe pick up.
I'm going to. Yeah. I didn't even know it was out there and would love to read more about it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of books. I'll send you an email with a few that I can recommend. There's also...
What do you know about faces and mirrors appearing?
That's common.
About faces and mirrors appearing?
That's common. Mirrors, water, like steam, like if you have a humidifier, that can do it. You can see them also sometimes.
Why are we seeing them like that? Can you explain that? Are they really there or no? Or that's kind of my deal, because in the picture that I've got some pictures that's clearly my son's face.
Okay.
I showed everybody, and you can clearly see it. Even the video. I took the picture from the video.
Okay. All right. I'd love to see those if you get a chance. Now, see, I
don't know what you're trying to say if they're really there. What's that point? What's the point of that?
Well, here's my take on some of it. I think there's a couple different factors. I think when you are in the early phases, I think what I've gathered is when someone passes at a younger age, they more than likely will reincarnate fairly quickly. It could be anywhere from weeks to like 10 years. That's kind of what I've looked at, but who knows? But them appearing is basically seems to be their way of kind of being in limbo between the physical death phase and going on to possibly reincarnate or possibly go to another quote realm or astral realm, however we want to look at it. I think many people end up back here, but there's a whole nother kind of theory I have on it, where that goes into the makeup of this place itself, the realm itself. I don't know, some things I'm hesitant to say because I don't want to like freak you out or anything.
No, I really want you to say them.
Yeah, I think where we live, this realm it's an inverted realm. It's very deceptive. That doesn't mean that what you experienced wasn't your son, because you probably felt it, right? Like inside, right? You felt it was him, I would imagine. Yeah. So
well, it woke me up. That's how it all started.
Yeah.
I heard I was sleeping. It was about 4 a.m. Knock. It was like he was knocking.
Okay.
And I woke up, and for some reason, because of a prior event, I grabbed my phone immediately and started videoing, and caught the video, and just happened to see his face in this little mirror that was on my dresser. And it was really kind of strange because where I was at the time, I was in his old bedroom sleeping.
Oh. So I think a lot. I mean, I think what happens a lot is they stick around. It's pretty common trend I've noticed that their soul, their spirit sticks around for a certain amount of time.
Right, I believe that.
Yeah, in some course,
it's almost like they have to know that we're okay.
Exactly.
That's the feeling I get.
And it's your energy that he's feeling. If your intention and feelings and thoughts are on him, I think what happens is that they are receiving that through some sort of transmission, and either they'll appear or they'll kind of give some weird cue to you. Another thing you might start. I'm sorry?
I have that a lot.
Yeah, and so
I thought for a while it was just my imagination, until it started happening to my work partner, my business partner.
Okay.
Why would he be having and seeing and feeling my son?
Okay. Were they close at all?
They were somewhat close, yes.
Okay. And were you? I mean, obviously, you probably spend a lot of time with this person, right?
Right. I mean, he's my roommate.
Okay.
We share business. I moved down here to help him with his business years ago, and I bought into it. And I just share like a house. We split rent.
Okay, I think that makes a lot more sense.
We started, obviously I started having things, and I just did not talk about it because I thought I was losing my mind.
That's the unfortunate thing. That's the worst part about all of this. But
I thought, am I losing it? Because this is just not normal. Am I thinking about my son too much and creating this in my head? I just kept thinking I was doing something to create it, that it wasn't real, that the things that were happening wasn't really happening. Until my roommate was here, and he was like, what the hell was that?
So what happened were you present?
Yes.
Okay,
the first time we both were sitting in the living room watching TV, and we seen a light. Both of us, out of the corner of our eyes, there was just a light, like a shooting light.
Okay.
And I was like, what was it? And there was no way, it wasn't like a reflection from cars or anything. It was at night, but you couldn't, everything was closed. There was nothing that would have done that. And I was like, that's really weird. So again, I just took out my phone and just started recording. And of course, orbs just everywhere.
All over. Yeah.
In this video provided by Cheryl, you will see orbs as well as a smoky type of substance manifesting itself inside the home. It comes from all different directions. It comes from above the ceiling, pushing down. It comes from the floor, pushing up, and then it even emits itself out of the mirror and the space heater. It's quite interesting. And normally when these things form, like the smoke specifically, what you will see is entities appear, like more well-defined entities, I guess we should say. And I think this is a great example of what many people do see when they are going through grief and their loved ones are trying to communicate with them. Now this video, as well as a few others Cheryl has provided me, will be broken down completely in future releases, so stay tuned to the channel to see those videos broken down, and with filters a lot can be exposed. So here's the rest of the interview. Enjoy.
And it was crazy. He goes, what the hell is that? He had never heard of orbs. So I tried to explain a little bit without sounding too crazy, because I didn't know what his take on any of this was. How do you explain that to somebody who's never heard of it or researched it?
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah.
Very difficult. And so I was like, that's really weird. And I started explaining to him I was seeing light things happening before the orbs would see. And there's times I can see the orbs with my own eyes. I don't even have to have anything now. There's times I see them fly past me.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, wow, and I get that sense of somebody's there. And I've always been able to feel when there's a spirit around me.
So you can feel the energy. Yeah.
I've always been able to do that. As a matter of fact, so have all of my kids. The house that I own in Oklahoma, the man that the house was built for, he died there. Okay. Did not know this whenever I bought the house. About 8 months into living there, weird things started happening. And it started in the bathroom, in the master bathroom. I kept feeling like I was being watched.
Okay.
And the feeling was just more and more and more and more. Finally, I saw shadows. I would see shadows of him walking back and pacing. But it was always when I was in the bathroom looking into my bedroom. He was pacing in the bedroom.
Okay. Do you happen to have any clue where he might have died? Did he die in the house somewhere? Where?
It was 7 years later.
Okay.
I finally found out that the gentleman passed away in the bathroom, going to the bathroom. He had a massive heart attack. Yeah. Nobody had ever told me that. Finally, one of the neighbors, I finally got the courage because so many things had happened. My kids were seeing things, having experiences. I finally got the courage to ask one of my neighbors who had lived around there for a long time. I asked him, I said, the gentleman that had my house before, I said, do you know what happened to him? Because I didn't know he had passed. He said he died years ago, and he said he was an ex-vet. He had been in the military, lost both of his legs. The Navy had paid for the house to be built for him because he was handicapped. They made it handicap accessible. He said, that's why your house is handicap accessible, and you have a sidewalk that goes all the way around your house because the man did all the gardening. He loved to garden. Okay. And he said, that's why you have the gardens like you do, because that's what he did, and he could do it in a wheelchair.
Okay.
Said,
Are you still in that home or still own that home?
I own the home. Yes, I still own the home. That's where I raise my children.
Okay. All right. And that's the other house you go to once in a while?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's also where Logan's bedroom was. So now whenever I go home, I sleep in his bedroom because my daughter lives there now. She's got the, so my bedroom is Logan's. And whenever I go back and visit, and yeah, there's times I feel that man. But the oddest thing is a lady I had never met. She was actually my daughter's boyfriend's mother. She had come over to babysit one day, and whenever they had gotten back, she just bluntly said, "Do you know that there's a man that walks back and forth in that bedroom?" She saw him.
Wow.
Had no clue.
So
We didn't talk
random lady.
Random lady. She said, "Do you know that there's a man that walks back and forth in that bedroom? He paces the floor." And I was like, "Oh, we've never told anybody that."
Wow.
But yeah, I knew it was there. Obviously I could see it.
And so, was this a neighbor that pointed that out, or
no? It was my daughter's boyfriend's mother, who I had never met.
And did she just say it out loud, like just say it, or did she
bluntly came out and said, "Do you know?" She goes, "This house is a little creepy. Did you know that this house is haunted?" Basically.
Okay. Right.
She said, "There is a man who walks back and forth in that bedroom." She said, "I have sat here and watched it the whole time I was here babysitting."
Okay, saw it while babysitting.
So I thought it was really odd because I'd never told anybody that that's what I seen.
Wow. Yeah. No. I mean, that's she's connected. And I think you are too. I think you're heavily connected. Do you mind if I ask you what your blood type is?
I'm O positive.
Okay. Now, see, what I've kind of come to the conclusion with how this world works here, I think we live in a form of a simulation. I think I'm sorry?
Like an illusion?
Well, we're definitely in an illusion. That I'm convinced of. But I think it's such an illusion that I think we do have some sense of free will, but not as much as we might think we have. And I think, yeah. And I think most of our life is scripted cradle to grave. And I think there possibly is, before we incarnate here, we might know some of that script of what might play out in our lives. Hence, maybe why you're able to pick that up. There's also a lot of weird things you can throw in there with premonitions and
I believe that the souls that we obviously are connected to right now, say our family, are they something that follows us? I mean, do we stay kind of connected to our soul family?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. That's a tough one.
Things that, I mean, there's some things I'm leading up to that by that question.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I think there's no doubt that exists, but the reason why I'm a little hesitant at times is because of I'm going back to the nature of where we live. I think the reincarnation process itself is actually a deception, but that doesn't mean that I think what will happen is when we pass, we will have an inner knowing of who, you will meet your son or whoever, your loved ones, your pets, whatever it may be, and you'll have an inner knowing. But I think the process right after we die is a vulnerable period for our soul. So when you hear people talk about going into the light and all of a sudden they see Jesus or they'll see their, for in your instance, you'll see your son or maybe your favorite pet, your mother, your father, whoever, someone that was really attached to you while you were in the physical, and they will quote unquote be your guide.
Right.
Now, everything, and I'm going to stress almost everything that I've come to conclude about the process after we die seems to be a very slippery slope and is more than likely a deception. I think
I think so
we
too.
all have to go through many lifetimes here.
I believe the NDEs, the near-death experiences that we hear about, I believe that those things did happen to these people.
Absolutely.
I believe them 100%, but I believe that what they see is what basically
They
the
believe.
or whatever is how they believe, their beliefs.
Absolutely. That's why I was kind of saying, if you believe in Jesus, you'll see Jesus. You believe in Muhammad, you'll see Muhammad. So it's laid out there for you.
Don't think that that's really how it is. You go.
You're smart. Honestly, I normally would have a conversation like this with someone and they wouldn't get it, or they might. I mean, there's some, but I mean, you are on the right track. I think,
I've said for years, and I even said this to my son a lot, and I actually had a weird dream about him saying that I was right. But I used to tell him all the time, don't worry about what people say heaven is. Don't worry about all that. And he was like, why do you say that? I'm like, your heaven's going to be whatever the heck you want it to be.
You got it. You got it.
Reality, your heaven. I said, if you want to have cars all around you and that's what you want, then it's going to be there. I said, I hope that my heaven is a beach, just beautiful view, and my family. I said, that's what I hope my view, my heaven is. I said, your heaven may be completely different. I said, it's not what these people are talking about. I said, I promise you, heaven's not what you hear.
No.
The pearly,
close.
blah, blah, blah. I just don't believe it. And, like I said before, my family is very religious, right? Well, I'm not.
Yeah, same here. I grew up in a not strict religious household, but my family was.
You're just spiritual. Like, I have a knowing. I'm more into the quantum, a lot of science, a lot of. I believe that there is something higher. Don't get me wrong.
Same here.
Don't know what that is.
Yep.
I believe something did create all this. There had to be something to start the energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's some sort of grand architect design here. Yeah.
Is that God? I don't know.
You don't know. Exactly. Yep.
No, and I don't know that we'll ever really know until we pass. And I don't even know that we'd even really know then.
Yeah, well, I think the one thing I have stood my ground on, and I almost say this to myself every day, that when the time comes for me to leave this physical body, I will make no soul contracts, no yes or no decisions. I will not relinquish my free will in any way, shape, or form when that time comes. Wow. And that's the most important thing, because I think that's how we ended up here. I'm pretty convinced of that. I think
say that this was hell, so
I think there's a lot of merit to it. I think this is
heaven or hell. I don't believe if you commit suicide, you're not going to see your loved ones again or go to the same place. I just believe all that it's garbage. Garbage. It's what people need something to believe in.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I think the whole Bible thing came. That's where they have to have something to believe in.
It's a believe in, and it's a control system too. It's
prove to me that there is that. I can prove to you by quantum theory a lot of things that you can't prove to me by that Bible.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's why I really started believing that, okay, my son's soul, his being, who he is or whatever, it's still there, still has energy. You can't kill energy. That's the thing like that. It doesn't
can
stop.
either be created or destroyed. Yep.
So that's where I'm at with it. So
Yeah.
it was really very hard for me to believe in God. I like to say that there is something higher being. I do believe in something higher. I just don't know what that is.
Yeah, same here. I think there's just there's a source, but I think that source has also rooted out other sources.
Right.
And that one of those sources kind of went rogue, and that's why this materialistic realm exists and why we find where we are.
I think you're right. I really do. I mean, I'm on that same page of how do you, like, I'm just a researcher anyway. I always have been. I've loved science and history. I like the research of things, and I love to learn new things. And obviously, the death of my son made me really start digging because new things had happened.
Yeah. So is there any kind of chronological order you can maybe put to like the weird events with your son? Like maybe like what was the first thing, and then if whatever you can remember off the top of your head, like how soon after did it start happening? Things
2 days.
like 2 days.
2 days.
Okay.
The second day, me and all of my friends were standing there, and I was trying to make a phone call. I was actually on the phone talking to somebody, and I dropped my phone. It hung up on the person I was talking to and started calling my son Logan.
Whoa.
And everybody looked at the phone and went, "What the hell?" That was the first thing, and I had
So you dropped the phone.
it fell out of my hand, and it fell on the ground and hung up on him and was face up and was dialing my son. It said calling Logan.
Wow.
Then the fourth day, we were planning the funeral and planning things. I was sending my son's best friend some text messages. We were text messaging, and he had sent a message. I was putting on my makeup as I was talking to him. Hadn't read his last message. Whenever I picked up the phone to read what he had just sent, there was a message back that said, "Hi." Let me see. I'll have to look because I think I still have it.
Sure.
And it was sent from me to him, and I didn't send it. Strange, huh?
Yeah.
And I immediately said, I did not send that. I didn't even have my phone in my hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
was the fourth day. And then.
Okay, so that was day 4. Okay.
Yeah, so day 2 and day 4, I had experiences. And then 4 days after the funeral, my entire family and a bunch of our friends started getting random phone calls from how do I say it? Like they would get random text messages of old conversations that they had with me resent to them. And they didn't know why they were getting these weird messages. They wasn't putting 2 and 2 together.
So messages that you had with your friends one-on-one were being resent to them.
To different people and family.
Oh, to different people. So,
yeah.
So a message you might send to A went to B.
Yeah, I mean, it was just random messages.
Wow.
Everybody, my entire family and all of my closest friends got one.
Wow. Was it the same message or?
It's just random, weird. And they were like, what in the world? What is she talking about in there? I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't send you a message. And they would show me. They would screenshot it and show me.
Wow.
And I thought, that's weird. And I thought, I wonder if it's Logan messing with the phones, trying to figure out how to contact people.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, that was just the feeling I got, that he was making his phone calls, and that was the only way he could do it.
He's trying to get your attention.
Yeah, it was very strange. But that was 4 days after the funeral, and it would have been, let's see, 7, 8, 9, 12 days
12
after.
days? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've had a lot of weird things. And then I started having dreams again of the accident. That started about,
Oh, no, that's terrible.
well, I think it was my son making me see things, because there was actually events in the accident that we were still questioning. I was
Yeah.
and getting the answers every time I would have the dream, like I was in the backseat of the car.
There is something I wanted to say, but I think it's probably best that we might pause the recording and then I'll pick it up after. So hold on 1 minute. Okay. So you wanted to go into the details about the accident?
Yes, January 6th, the day of the accident. My son had just gotten off work and was going to take his girlfriend out to dinner. He got a phone call from his sister that she forgot to go feed the grandma's dog and needed Logan to go over to the grandma's house to feed the dog for her. So that's what Logan did. He went and picked up his girlfriend, went to his grandma's house, and was leaving grandma's house when the accident occurred.
Oh.
So he pulled out of the house. A witness that actually witnessed the whole thing pulled right behind Logan, saw him pull out into the road from the grandma's house. He pulls out, he goes up to a stop sign, waits, however long, makes a right-hand turn. He was on the road that he had just turned onto for 10 seconds. We did not know this. She didn't know how long, but it wasn't very long. She had followed behind she was in front of him. I'm sorry. She noticed him
in the back.
Okay.
Okay.
He was in front of him, but she seen him pull out from the house and all that. Okay. So she saw all of this happen. So as soon as he turned, she said when she turned, she didn't see any cars coming.
Okay.
There was no way Logan could have seen any cars coming because there wasn't any as far as they were concerned. Okay. So they had no clue, saw nothing. He turns 10 seconds on this road. He is slammed in the rear from behind. A man was doing 127 miles an hour. Slams into the back of my son on a residential road. Now, this road was about a 3-mile long stretch of road, though, and it was coming up to an intersection of red light, a big, busy intersection. He hit my son 200 yards from that. The girl that witnessed everything was sitting at the red light, and she said as soon as it hit Logan's car, she no longer seen Logan's car. She said she heard a boom and explosion, and she no longer seen the pretty blue Mustang. She didn't know where he had went. She said all she knew was that there was a white car flipping coming at her.
So a Mustang hit him, or was his car the Mustang?
My son was the Mustang.
Okay.
The gentleman that hit my son was in a 2019 Honda Accord. Okay. He was 2 years old and was an OBU professor.
I'm sorry, how old was he?
62.
62-year-old professor.
Yes.
And he's going 127.
Yes.
On a residential street. That's lovely.
Okay, so the gentleman that hit my son walked away with nothing. He was completely fine, wasn't even bleeding. It killed my son instantly, and his girlfriend was pretty much gone, but she lived 4 hours.
So, girlfriend, did the girlfriend ever make any statements, or was she pretty much out?
She's already gone, really.
Okay.
She dead. Immediately. She was, like I said, her heart was still beating, but
she wasn't conscious. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
They literally kept her alive just so they could do organ donation.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, both of them passed right there, but my son actually passed on at the scene.
Okay. Now, sometimes this has occurred and it's happened to me. I'll tell you more about the story later because I want to kind of keep you going with the flow for yourself. When I witnessed a fatality, which just happened to be the night before my father died, and I knew I had a premonition. I knew he was going to die that night. He didn't die that night. He died the next morning, but I knew. And there was a lot of weird things that were happening that day that led up to it. But the point is right at my exit, after driving an hour back from seeing him, there was a fatality right across the highway, which closed both sides. And I saw a kind of light come down the highway, hover over the Jeep where the person had passed, and kind of cast down like a weird light, and it like quickly went up the light. It was still at the same spot, hovering above. The light just kind of disappeared, and then almost like a physical object came and it just like whizzed out into the sky, and like a kind of weird trajectory, upward trajectory. Is there any weird accounts from the person who witnessed anything at the scene, or any weird accounts of them seeing anything like odd?
Don't think that anybody was paying that close of attention because there's so much going on.
It's difficult.
But I will tell you, there was a picture taken, and I do not know still who took the picture. I want to say it probably was one of the police officers because it was given to the News Star that ran the picture in the newspaper. And I got to looking at it. Well, first of all, it took 7 months for me to realize that you could see my son's dead body.
Oh my God.
In this picture that had been displayed all over the news.
They didn't even black it out or
no. Okay, so it took me 7 months to see it. Nobody else mentioned it. On the 7-month anniversary, I had a dream the night before to look at the picture closer that I was missing something. That next morning I woke up and the first thing I saw was my son. I've got 2 pictures and you can see him in both of them. And both of them circulated for a long time. One of them still out there circulating and one of them I did get removed.
Good.
But in one of them, it's so odd that you say that because it looks to me almost like a smoky
haze. Yeah.
Almost like it's his spirit leaving.
Could be. Very well could be.
I'll have to send you the pictures.
Yeah. If you do, a lot of times, if you take a picture and you really zoom in and you just start at the top and start scrolling across, just going kind of like almost like a line by line, you will sometimes see faces, like spiritual type entities.
All the time.
Yeah. And I see them constantly too with a lot of stuff that I film. And there's a good chance you might see something.
Oh gosh, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And what is that all about? Why is it that we see those?
I just, there's.
Why are they there? Are they just our people watching? I mean, that's my question.
I think there's a couple different things. I think that we live in a duality. I think there's.
Sometimes I recognize them, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, there are a lot of times they could be all sorts of weird looking things. Sometimes they look like things we could recognize. Like I see like cats a lot. I see birds. I see human-like faces. I've seen like things that represent dragons. Also,
dragons. I've seen cats and dogs.
Yeah, dogs.
And people. Now, I've never really seen anything weird like dragons or animal, like any other different animal. I've never a bird, but I've had things sometimes. I've had birds appear that make me wonder who it is. Because I feel like
birds, yeah, we can even go more into that in a minute. Let me write down a note so we can talk about that. Because I firmly believe that birds can be cues for us to pay attention in a certain area, or just to pay attention in general to our surroundings.
Yeah.
A quick thing I'll add is a family member passed away a few months back, and it was the day, I think it was the day she died, actually. My mother and I had gone to a pizza restaurant, and apparently her favorite bird, I think, was a cardinal, or I believe it was a cardinal. And that day, we're sitting at the pizza restaurant inside with the windowsill right here, and the cardinal came right up to the windowsill, and it stayed there almost a long time, just sitting right there in the windowsill. And, it was a feeling that, that could have been her, or some sort of, way of saying it was her.
They do send animals sometimes like that to kind of give us that, hey, I'm okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the other thing, well, we'll just kind of talk about it. If you're looking and you see sometimes the birds will be so far up in the sky, you'll start seeing a flock kind of circle, and it really, so most of the time when I see them, it doesn't make sense why they're that far up. And a lot of times what you'll kind of see also is it seems like more birds kind of appear almost out of nowhere. Yeah. And they'll circle or they'll go in a certain direction. And oftentimes you might not necessarily see it with the naked eye, but if you start filming it and go back to the film, you'll see weird things buzzing around, like orbs or like white spheres, or it could be a number of odd different things. Some people even see like balloons. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole thing I did with somebody. There's a whole phenomenon with balloons that exist out there, which is really odd. And all sorts of weird looking shaped entities that you really couldn't even describe, but they're in the physical. It's almost like they're a crossover between some sort of spiritual or astral realm and the physical. They can somehow manifest themselves or interact with the manifestation, surrounding birds of some, or even cloud structures. Sometimes you see odd cloud structures that resemble entities, and I feel that those are things that we could kind of, they just seem like they're cues to just say, hey, pay attention,
Storms, like lightning.
Yeah.
Storms. Do you think that there's something related to?
Yeah, optics.
A little bit.
You mean like an uptick in experiences? Yeah, absolutely. I think I firmly believe that. I think we live in my assumption on this is only an assumption, is that I think because we live in an electrical universe or electrical type realm, which we really aren't told about, but there's some really great alternative research to suggest all of that you would think that if that's the case and you have lightning, in a way, or lightning and thunder is kind of like a form of almost like charging things up. People tend to see things, really weird things, like more often and more intensely when those storms occur.
I was videoing some lightning one night. I love to do photography. That's another thing. That's one of my little side passions that I got into years ago. Not any good at it, but
oh, you're fine. I'm sure.
I just, it's kind of given me some peace and given me something that I enjoy doing that I can do by myself.
Yeah.
So I was videoing one night some lightning, trying to catch some cool pics, and when I was going back in to edit, I was like, oh, wow. I was seeing a lot more faces. I was seeing clearer faces.
More distinct, yeah.
And it was weird. I thought, why do I see my son in all of these? And so I sent them to someone else to look to see if they saw the same thing. Didn't say anything about what they were looking at. I said, do you see anything unusual? All I said.
That's a great way to do it.
And the first thing back was, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. They picked your son out right away, right? Picked out Logan. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Weird. And I was like, now these are the things that I have the questions about. Like, I guess my deal is he a soul that's trapped? Is he in limbo? Is he not resting? Is he not able to rest because he knows we still have court? We're still going through a high profile case. Is that why he's still here and needing to make sure that we're okay?
I would say that there's a, of course, that's a very big possibility. And again, my opinion on all this, I think you will see a lot over and over and over when you start to read stories about this, that there's almost like this time period where certain souls stick around. I think there are also souls that are just boom, right out of here, and then I think there are some that stick around for whatever reason. And I think Logan's sticking around for you. I do. I feel that way. I don't feel that is necessarily like a deception or you're being messed with.
I guess my deal is of course I would never want him just to be stuck, or to just stick around because of me. I want him to move on if that's what he needs to do. But if that's not what he wants, obviously I would not force that. So I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want him to ever think that he has to because of me.
No, but I'll be honest. Some of the stuff that I've read, it seems like almost all of when people have these occurrences, it seems almost streamlined that they stick around because they want to. They might feel they have some sort of unfinished business. Maybe there could be some sort of alternative learning that is going on in the background for them. And when they're ready, that's when they'll continue their journey out into the astral realm in a different form or a different area,
I think he feels like he has to because of me. Like, I feel like
you feel that's like inside. Yeah.
Like
so my suggestion would be, I've actually, kind of read a few accounts similar to what you said, that they feel like they're sticking around for the family member. I think what when you're ready, maybe you should try and do like a meditation. Maybe say, send out my suggestion would be, when you're ready to do this, you kind of dedicate a day to yourself alone. And you're going to start off your day by thinking of him, sending him love, sending him, his best, and letting him know that, you'd like to maybe have one last, communication with him in this form, at, such and such a time, in the tree in the backyard, or some. I would probably go into nature. I think nature tends to make things work a little more smoother and easier, and there's a resonance there. And I think, you kind of just have a conversation with him. You might even, you might experience a lot of weird things. It might be subtle. I don't know, but, it's kind of, but if you feel in your inner knowing that you think that's the case, you could just say, look, I want you of your free will to decide whether you still need to stick around here. And if you feel that you're only sticking around here for me, then please go and of your free will and do whatever you want. You know, the key thing is to let them know that, you know, you have the option, and I want, you know, you to decide. So, you know, I would try and work it that way, but, you know, you might end up being surprised where, you know, he's, you know, he might still be able to go off, but you're still going to get some sort of communication from time to time in some form. I firmly believe that they don't just go away, huh?
I don't have it as often now. I know it's gotten less and less, but I do have weird things still happen, but it's not as often as I was. There for a while, it was pretty frequent.
Yeah.
But I think as time has passed, it's like maybe he doesn't feel like he has to show me that he's there. Maybe it's just because I've accepted, okay, I think he's all around me always.
Yeah.
Kind of guiding and kind of helping.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, and I think it's really this, what you just kind of said is really typical. It starts off really intense, and then it's still frequent, and then it kind of just slows down a little bit.
Which is weird. Like when my brother Daniel passed away, the one that passed away in '97, nothing. But
nothing at all, huh?
We all knew he'd been sick for a long time, and we wanted him to go. We wanted him to be better.
Yeah.
We didn't want him hurting. So I think his passing, due to the situation, made it easier for him. He called me and said, "You're the only reason why I've held on as long as I have." And he said, "I just can't do it anymore. My body's giving out. I want you to be prepared." That was the conversation. And then one day he was going to dialysis, and boom, gone. You know, and I never had anything from him that I know of. You know,
yeah, I think there really is something to be said for certain spirits, souls that when they get out, they're out, and
he's gone.
Yeah,
it's done with that life. You know, he said his goodbyes. He knew where he stood with everybody, and he was done. My brother George, the one that was murdered, that was the one I was the closest to. 2 or 3 days after he died, I actually had a visitation of him.
Really?
Yeah. Sat right next to me and had a conversation.
Well, that's
I knew I got information from his death from that conversation and told.
Wow.
And he just basically said I didn't have a chance to say goodbye. That's it. I've never had anything else that I knew was him.
Wow.
My mom, never.
But you still kind of had these inklings. Something's going to happen.
Around, have to like they watch, whatever, be present. You know, have to let me know, hey, I'm here. Whatever.
Yeah. Do you look at like when you check your watch or your phone for the time, do you see patterns and numbers like 11:11, 10:10?